Welcome to Buying Sandlot. I'm Kyle Pagan along with Kyle Scott. We've got a solid episode for you today focusing on women's flag football getting a massive win. OttoSport AI is coming to take over the youth sports management platform industry. And we have Jess Brodsky, CCO at PlayerData, later in the episode to talk about their partnership with MITRE to create the first ever GPS-enabled soccer ball that tracks player data like never before. But before we get into the show, you know it if you listen. Tickets for our youth sports business conference in Philadelphia on April 14th and 15th are still available. Early bird tickets are still on sale, but will increase on January 31st. And there are also some limited VIP attendee tickets. We've got an amazing set of speakers. If you listen to the show, we've announced them before. If you're in the newsletter, we've announced them there. You won't want to miss people from TeamSnap, fastbreak AI, Huddle, Game Changer, and more. And again, if you're subscribing to the newsletter, we'll be announcing them every week as we get closer to the event at Ballers. Enough of the logistics. We've got a big one today. Let's talk about it. Flag football gets a massive win for the future of the sport. What does it mean? The NCAA has added women's flag football to the emerging sports for women's program. It means that flag football, to reach championship status, like your women's college basketball or your NCAA men's college basketball or college football, at least 40 NCAA programs must sponsor the sport as a varsity offering within 10 years while meeting minimum requirements for games played and player participation. As of 2024, 65 NCAA programs have sponsored flag football at the varsity or club level. Nebraska just announced yesterday that they will also be bringing a women's flag football team at the varsity level starting in 2028. I know I've done a lot of talking, but can I make a prediction before we start and let me know what you think?
Go for it.
Now, everybody that's listening to this, remember, I've only been in the space for 3 weeks, so this might be a dumb prediction, but I think women's flag football is coming to eat everyone's lunch. And I don't think it's crazy to think that in the next decade, not only is flag going to be a major sport in women's D1 sports and take maybe most of the revenue share and most of the NIL dollars, I think it's going to be the most popular sport. And I think their media rights deal will be larger than women's basketball, which sits at roughly $65 million right now.
I mean, there's some good anecdotal evidence, data for that. The women's flag on ESPN ABC got something like 600,000 viewers or so this summer for, like 13, 14-year-old ages, I believe. So there's definitely like signals there that there is a public appetite to watch this, and we'll see it more at the Olympics. What else makes you bullish on it besides just flag being so hot?
I think that last media rights deal was so largely off the backs of like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, that awesome NCAA tournament final they had. And for every like amazing Caitlin Clark 3 from half court, when I just sat down and watched it on the NFL Network, when I watched flag football on the NFL Network this summer, there was like 3-4 highlights like that during the game that were just like one-handed catches or a girl taking around the middle, shimmying all around, someone can't grab her flag, she runs for a 60-yard touchdown and stuff. I just think and we're seeing it already. And it's such a sport still in its infancy stages. Like, these women are building their brands with legitimate endorsements from like Under Armour and tens of thousands of followers on Instagram. Like, I think the infrastructure is already there. I mean, wait until the SEC, the Big Ten gets into it. The Jets are given $1 million to build their own pro flag football program and stuff. I just think all the headlines you read about it is just there's going to be a massive infusion of cash, if there already isn't, to really build this up.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. And I think from a marketing perspective, you can see this goes for men's and women's sports, by the way, but you can see their faces, right? Football itself is tough to market to. Baseball in some ways, right? But a sports, basketball, where you could see the whole head, see the faces, recognize people, that helps. And I think it's almost, it's kind of like there's a dichotomy here. The structure is there to accept it, right? The structure being the NCAA, conferences, TV or streaming dollars. That structure exists, but ironically, the structure within the sport itself is like being built while the plane is getting off the ground. I know you're having a conversation, I think tomorrow with Dave from Breakaway. We've talked a bit about how they're helping flag in general think about like what stats matter, right? Like the sport in so many ways is so new in terms of becoming professionalized and becoming mainstream that the basic things we think about in other sports, like we know what a home run is, what a first down is, what a slam dunk is. These are ways that we sort of like chronicle and catalog the game. And Flag, I don't think the average person could name, you pass and completion and touchdown happen in flag, but like what stats matter? What makes for a good player versus a not good player? All that stuff is being fleshed out in real time. Is it 5-on-5 or 7-on-7, right? Like all of this stuff is getting kind of determined at different levels of the sport. So I think the structure to accept it and mainstream it is there. The Olympics, NFL, Michael Rubin, Tom Brady, like the big names are involved. Clearly, high school athletic associations are getting involved. We've covered this a lot. Now the NCAA, of course, with women's flag, but there's still so many. It's like the Wild West in terms of a sport. It's so fascinating. The tech infrastructure, the equipment, the events, so much stats, so much to be determined. A lot of fun to cover. A lot of fun.
And it's only sanctioned in high school sports in 17 states.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and there's proposals in each of these states. We could do a whole episode on this, but each of these states, much like the NCAA, have specific, check boxes you need to hit. I'm certainly not an expert in that, but it's funny to see that, hey, even something that has clear momentum still kind of needs to meet certain criteria and cross certain thresholds before it gets officially sort of blessed by whatever the governing body is. Fascinating.
Where do you see this from maybe like a business standpoint, but also like an operator standpoint? Because we already see flag eating into other youth sports participation. And like I talked about the windfill of NIL dollars that'll be available as it matures. Like if you're an operator of a strictly a soccer league, like do you start fighting against flag, or do you think like all of this will level itself out? The Kings will remain the Kings, and maybe they'll just add flag football to the kingly structure, and enough people will get the pieces of the pie.
Yeah, I mean, I just come back to take like one higher level up view, which is the stuff we've talked about before. I think the clubs that begin to think about offering multiple sports throughout the year under one club umbrella will do really well. And there's just so much opportunity with flag. There's demand and opportunity. And I know we talk about how fast it's growing. The participation rates are still relatively low compared to some other sports. So huge headroom to grow into. And women's flag, you basically just created a sport over the last decade. A whole new sport was created because women can now play football competitively, right? There are virtually no females playing tackle football at the high school level. There's a few, right? But they are certainly the exception. Yeah. So you just created this entire new sport, let alone the growth in the male side of the sport. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a perfect sort of sport that can be clipped up for the modern attention span. It's fast paced, just lots of tailwinds.
And the competitive barrier of entry isn't crazy, And I think what really helps them out. I was looking up women's flag football rankings. I wanted to see who the best in the world was. Mexico's number one right now, apparently. So it's not like United States. Like one thing that like during the Olympics, and that's what I think will put flag football into the stratosphere once we hit 2028. It'll be a lot more fun to watch a competitive women's flag football game than it is watching U.S. women's basketball beat Angola by 30. It's just not that fun. So I think like them being able to like say what you want. We got the Winter Olympics coming up. Like people know Canada is going to whoop us in the Olympics, but America does love being a scrappy underdog and maybe a sport that they don't really excel in, and that'll make people tune in. So I think that'll be really interesting down the line.
One of the things I wonder, and this applies to flag and other kind of newer, I know there's like no shortage of emerging sports and there's lots of far-flung ideas. I think some of this was brought on by the legalization of betting because they're like, hey, what can we create that people can bet on? And there's been these kind of like slap fights, right? You could bet on it, right? Like sanctioned ping pong matches. Like all this was kind of being driven by the gamification of sports. Obviously, I think, no one thinks those have like long-term potential, but flag I would certainly classify as an emerging sport and certainly positioned to do well. But I do wonder if the industry, the sports business and media industry overstates the potential of some newer entrants to get meaningful adoption. Like, yes, 600,000 people watched the flag championship. There's certainly room to grow. But the reason sports do so well, it's so concentrated within a few of these legacy fan bases. Look at the NFL, right? These are teams largely that have existed in cities for decades, right? In baseball, in some cases, more than 100 years. the NBA, right? Like there's the reason why these leagues are appointment viewing is because you have entire regions of people whose shared identity is wrapped up in those teams. We're from Philadelphia. There's probably no market where that's more true than maybe Philadelphia, New York, and Boston, right? And like, I do wonder at what point it's just, hey, this is cool and fun, casual viewing.
Yeah.
And then how can you compel this sort of must see TV nature of the major pro sports leagues?
Yeah.
College certainly helps that because you have this affinity for your school. But again, there's a huge difference between someone who's been watching UConn women's basketball for decades and someone who's like, oh, I want to watch UConn's women's flag team, right? There's just a different level of caring just by virtue of it being new. So I think a lot, and I don't apply this to flag, but I do think a lot of the emerging sports, the next hot thing, the next this, the next that, there's only room for so much. Like this is a well-documented thing, how much time people have and people's diminished attention spans. You know, a lot of people have a hard enough time sitting through an entire NFL game or even a 2-hour college basketball game. Do they want to sit through an entire flag football match? Or is it just one of those things that's sort of purpose-built or sort of well-constructed to build personal brands and distribute through social? That is also a winning business, by the way. But it's the sort of thing people will sit down and watch on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Does it eat up the mainstream? Who knows? Or is it just something we just appreciate in the Olympics, like swimming and I don't know, like figure skating, right?
Yeah.
Which is okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. I would be interested to see, like, as the sport progresses, like what I remember from watching this summer, and I was watching because my high school team is actually the Lansdale Catholic was actually the flag football team for the Eagles. So like I guess I had a different rooted interest in it than I normally would. But it was very fast paced. I remember not many commercials. I will be honest with you, I don't know if it's quarters or halves or periods, but they kind of were just flying by, rolling clock and everything. Not many commercials now. Obviously, if the sport does go mainstream, the advertising dollars will come with it, and we will be doing half boxes, we'll be doing quarter boxes, we'll be doing full length commercials, all that stuff. But one thing that I was reading about in the Nebraska press release was they're starting in 2028, and they're starting from January to May, I want to say. I could be wrong on that, but it definitely starts in January. And I just go back to like the USFL and the XFL. Like we're always trying to figure out what can be that little holdover while we don't have football. Yeah. And I'm wondering, like, obviously they're going to be competing with March Madness, both women's and men. They'll be competing with the wrestling championships, which just did record numbers at the Wells Fargo Center. They could be competing with the College Baseball World Series and stuff. So it'll be really interesting to see where the USFL and the XFL have had trouble taking off in that little winter, spring area between the Super Bowl and the NFL draft. What it will kind of be like, and if they can get those kind of numbers.
That's a good point. There's a presumption that football for football's sake. I do think this is different in that you're creating, and again, we could separate like the public viewing appetite. Those leagues needed to work. The sport already existed. They needed to work as a viewing product. Mm-hmm. Flag football can grow with the viewing portion, TV dollars portion of it being separate and ancillary to the actual growth of participation, right? From a youth level and the opportunity in the business of the infrastructure and the tech and the events and all of that, huge like tailwinds to push the sport forward. It doesn't need to be the sort of thing that gets like top 10 viewing every weekend at Sunday afternoons on NBC for that to be true. But it does, there is this sort of reaction in the US, like how can we get football on TV that people are going to watch? And a lot of times people seem to forget that the reason people watch the Bears, and Packers, for example, right? Because you have two legacy fan bases that need to see that game, and the whole country understands what the Bears mean and what the second round of the NFL playoffs means, what the wild card round means. That takes decades to build that sort of like to deeply root it with people, and it often gets left out of these conversations that the major pro leagues have deep rooted ties to their organizations and like the zeitgeist of society as a whole. The MLS is still chipping away at this. It takes a while.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what's not going to help grow the sport. A huge fight in Mesa, Arizona, youth flag football tournament over the weekend that canceled games. It was such a bad fight that it canceled a youth soccer game. And the youth soccer game had nothing to do with the parents that were fighting, but 100 people were involved. It took 45 minutes to clear the scene. needed over 75 cops. I was reading your take in the newsletter today. You think this actually might be a business opportunity for a business that you were talking about in there?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, like we cover some of this stuff. We do the parents behaving badly. This one even rose to the level above parents behaving badly because it's like a standalone story. But I'm almost like, okay, we don't need to be the action news of youth sports. People are going to yell at refs. Fights are going to happen. You know, there's enough events going on. Things are bound to happen. But what we'd like to do is try to pull out like, all right, what is the takeaway for the industry on these things, right? And I think there's a couple. James had one, which is, you've talked about, there's been reports about off-duty cops working at complexes like this. And this is actually becoming an increasingly large cost for event organizers to have security there because things like this do happen, right? So that is something the industry historically, you go back to the grassroots level of Little League Baseball, even high school football, maybe you have a couple of security guards or whatever. But now that you're getting these large events where it's no longer just within a community, you're having people come in from all over and it's super competitive, tempers flare. The industry needs to think a lot more about security. That's one. Two is, I think as you see more money and professionalization come into the space, there's going to be a larger conversation around physical safety at the event, both for the players in terms of injury and illness, spectators, injury and illness, but also just like violence and law enforcement events, as I would term this one, right? We cover a lot of the companies that think about compliance, background checks, and insurance, right? And all that stuff is good. We should absolutely be doing that, and certainly background checks on anyone who's going to be around children. But there is a CYA element to this, right? There's money, there's private equity backed organizations in the space now, and they need to make sure that, hey, no, like we vetted these people, we have these certain protocols in place. But then you also have to think about, well, things do happen, and how are you ensuring that if an athlete gets hurt, you're going to be able to appropriately care for them? I've heard lots of anecdotal stories, including a prominent person in the industry whose child got hurt at a flag football game, and it took like 30 minutes for an ambulance to show up. I referenced Go4, sort of friend of the newsletter, Andy Hayes and his team over there, and they have a network of like 25,000 athletic trainers, and they put together emergency action plans for these events. And that stuff's going to become table stakes over the next 5 years, because if I'm a parent and my kid is showing up to 1,000-person event and it's making all this money and it's owned by a $100 million private equity firm or whatever it is, or maybe someday a public holding company, you bet there's going to be lawsuits if something goes wrong. And so you need to think not just about compliance, but actually caring for people when things happen. And I would extend that to law enforcement fights. Every school needs to think about lockdown drills and things like that, right? I mean, you're bringing thousands of people together in consolidated spaces. Like unfortunately, there's going to be one of those horrible stories that's going to jut this into the conscious. So it's something, for better or worse, the industry, I think, will take more seriously in the coming years. Not that some pockets don't take it seriously. And it's just going to be one of those things that becomes table stakes, if for no other reason than to prevent future lawsuits if and when something does go wrong. So I think it's just a symptom or an example of where things will be headed.
Yeah. No, and it's because it's so interesting. Like we always talk about how like all this private equity and all this investment coming into the industry, and youth sports have been around, longer than we've been around, almost double the amount of times. And but it's still just such an industry in its infancy that it's just like, it's kind of like flag football, where it's just like, okay, we have to figure out infrastructure. We have to figure out coaches, players. We have to figure out insurance and stuff and everything. And it's just, there's so much opportunities, and you just laying it out and things that like, I don't even think about off the top of my head. That's 1,000 yards behind me that I don't even think about insurance and accounting and ticketing and all that stuff. I'm just like, flag football.
Yeah. I think look, if you take it back to the roots level, and again, the industry's long sort of evolved past this. And, I was playing at large hockey tournaments in the 1990s, right? And it was clear there was a business and there was security and all that stuff. But, my kid hurt his finger in a baseball game in the fall, right? And it was just like the local rec league. He swung at a ball, hit his knuckle. I thought maybe it was broken. There's obviously no trainer there. It's a bunch of dads running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Hey, does anybody have ice? You're looking for somebody who literally has an ice pack in their cooler for their kids' lunch. We're like,
crossing your fingers, a mom brought an ice pack. Like,
that was it.
I hear you. Yeah,
that was it. Right. You're figuring out how to shake it. Right. That's fine. We think about a lot of people. I don't think anyone listening to this thinks about it just this way, but a lot of people just think about youth sports as like the volunteer-led thing, and parents figure it out, and someone's got to drive a kid to the hospital or take them to get an x-ray tomorrow. But again, more and more large, huge for-profit events and headlines where the average parent maybe isn't as aware of this, and then now they're becoming aware that the money involved in this stuff, you bet they're going to have an expectation of safety, right? When I take my family to Disney World, part of the reason is because I have an expectation of like it being well run and safety versus going to the local carnival, right? I'm not going to let my kids get on the scrambler at the local carnival because I don't trust that there's appropriate oversight and contingency plans there.
Let the kids on the Gravitron. Let them be kids, man.
God, come on. Get out of here.
I love the Gravitron.
But you go to Disney, you go to Universal, you go to even a Six Flags, right? Like you expect all of these places have those protocols in place. And, again, if these are professional events, I think the expectation is it's already there, but it's only going to grow as it becomes clear the larger and larger dollars behind the space.
Hey, I just want to say, I never got stopped on the Gravitron. The Big Thunder, whatever it was called, it broke down when I was at Disney World. I just want to lay that out there for all my carnies that might listen to Buying Sandlot.
Please. And you probably had to get off and walk down these nice, like well-maintained steps with a cast member who was perfectly prepared for the situation.
It was really nice. It was. But when the lights come on, you don't like to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah,
that's the one thing I didn't like.
Great videos on TikTok of somebody seeing like the inside of like Space Mountain. Always fun.
Yes.
Always fun.
Did you see the mom get out of the what's the one I don't want to go down a tangent, but what's the one on the water, the really famous one?
Oh yeah, it's Tiana's Bayou Adventure now. It used to be Splash Mountain.
Splash Mountain, yes. Yeah. She just got out of the thing because it broke down and walked out. I was like, all right.
Yeah, I don't want to step in that water though. I don't know how much chlorine they have in that stuff. The last thing I'll add on this point is like you go to a high school football game historically, right? There'd often be an ambulance there, right? If a kid gets hurt, right? I mean, you kind of see these at like the larger high school games, right? You typically didn't see those at the local Pop Warner game. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, why just the high school kids? Yes, maybe there's more speed and people are more likely to get significant injury, right? But like the reality is, if there should be an ambulance at certain high school events, then there probably should be ambulances at certain 8th grade games or 6-year-old games, and you can't do that, but you can have trainers and. You can think about contingency plans. The larger the event, I think the more you need.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's shift gears. OttoSport AI, fresh off a $16.5 million seed round, OttoSport AI launches its new youth sports management platform focusing on volleyball, soccer, and lax. We got to talk to Luke on site at the United Soccer Coaches Convention, where I somehow was able to make it 10 minutes with him without sounding like a complete fool who doesn't have the first idea of what seed funding is. So before I ask you a question, what'd you think of the interview, my first one?
I thought it was really good. I appreciated how you just sort of glossed over seed fund round as like one word, not choosing which one was the right one. You're a quick study. You're a smart guy. You'll figure it out. But you played it off good. He didn't even notice.
That guy. And I do want to say thanks to Luke for sticking around and talking to us for a couple of minutes. It was really nice of them. They were very busy, I would say, that week.
What were you more impressed with? His high five or the vest? Rate his vest game. This needs to be a recurring feature. We got to rate the vest. His
vest game was good. I think a little bit too much puff though. I think I would have gotten one that kind of maybe hugged the frame a little bit better.
Okay.
But when you raise $16.5 million a seed round, what the hell does it matter what I think?
It adds at least a point to your best game. So what's your score? Right? We got to be like Portnoy on pizza here. Like we don't give out 10s.
7-3.
Oh, generous. Okay. All right.
Team Snap guys, 8-2.
Yeah, they got a tight. They have tight vest game, tight Q-zip game.
They coordinate.
Yeah.
All
right. So 8.
And Pete, don't think I didn't see the one at the RCX Sports. He whipped it out at RCX Sports too.
So, was it on LinkedIn?
It was on LinkedIn. You got to check that out.
Okay. All right. So what did Team Snap get at the event then? 8.2?
8.2.
And 7, you gave 7.3 to
7.3 to Luke.
Okay. We'll have to, I'm going to put it on you to keep these rankings.
All right.
I expect our guests to come on with their best vest.
Yeah. I mean, he was at IMG, most of the time, in the past and stuff. He probably wasn't wearing a lot of vests. Now he's going to be more of a conference guy. He's going to be more forward facing. The vest game for Luke is going to shoot through the roof. That's my prediction for 2026.
The vest is so versatile. It could be athletic wear. It could be dress up wear.
100%. If anyone saw your LinkedIn post, you obviously think OttoSport will stack up versus the competition right out of the gate. Why is that, you think?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wasn't aware of them. Obviously, they just launched, right? Some people in the industry kind of know what they were working on in the back end. OttoSport is, I don't want to say it's like, it's a refresh of a couple of products that had been previously acquired by Rally, I believe. One of which was Demosphere, which is like a sort of a very sort of aging, antiquated platform, as best as I can tell, and from the few people I've talked to. And they've brought those together and then are pouring a bunch of money into it, rebranding it, leading with AI, and obviously it's OttoSport AI. So it's it's unfair to say it's the same product or even remotely related, but it's sort of like it grew out of these prior products that Rally had become involved with and turned into a whole new thing. So it's just worth pointing that out to people in the space. It's new, it's a seed round, but it's like it is a unique situation of there was other things there within an existing kind of investment firm. So it's not just like some guy went out and built something and raised $16 million out of the gate, right? That being said, I do think, as I wrote, this represents kind of youth sports tech 2.0, right? And I would include the legacy folks, all the folks we just talked about: TeamSnap, League App, Sports Engine, Game Changer to some extent, Stack Sports, Playmetrics. And now you have these companies entering the space, kind of, I call it post 2022, when AI entered the mainstream, right? Leading with sort of leaner AI first tech. The existing platforms, and they're evolving, generally require lots of administration. You go in, you enter the roster, you enter the schedule, you do this, you do that, you do this. AI can obviously do lots of these tasks if layered in smartly. It can do scheduling, it can email parents, it can be proactive in saying, hey, it's snowing, you tell it the game's canceled, it has the email already written and sent out to the whole team. This is like just the operational stuff of youth sports that needs to happen. On Sunday, I got an email through TeamSnap from the league commissioner that all the basketball games were canceled. I'm the coach of one of the teams. I was supposed to go out and email the whole team. I didn't because I knew the whole league got the email. But like, it's just steps upon steps that people have to take on. TeamSnap is trying to address this with TeamSnap One. Everyone is leaning into how they incorporate AI, but then you have Fastbreak and Otto come along sort of post 2022 when AI becomes table stakes. And now like I want to say like they're sort of reimagining what that workflow looks like in a post AI world. And that's something the legacy companies certainly can do and are trying to do, but like they also have, lots of other factors to consider, whether that's private equity ownership, public company ownership, existing customers. You can't just go like rip up the whole way, volunteer-led organizations work and say, hey, we have this whole new thing and it works like this. It's all AI. Good luck, figure it out. You have to sort of piecemeal that out. And that is a challenge or something for them to work through. And then you have these other companies that are raising tens of millions of dollars, Fastbreak, 40 million, Otto, 16 million. They have money to go and attack this. And they're probably more than willing to just flip the poker table over and see where the chips land. And the existing guys need to be more careful about that. That's all.
Yeah, you could definitely see the smile come across Luke's face when I was talking to him about how much he's going to make it easier admin work. That seems to be one that they really are. Like, they sat down, they said they talked to a bunch of people even before, all this stuff and everything. And one thing, or the major thing that people and coaches, admins, all that stuff were just like, I get 80 to 100 emails, texts a day being like, is practice canceled or not?
Yeah.
And
I think it will be fascinating to watch this play out as you have and then you have these startups I mentioned on Size, I mentioned Orgo, that are thinking about, hey, parents need 8 apps. How do we make their lives easier? And so you have lots of fresh takes on how to do this and lots of platforms that largely already operate. If you're in youth sports, you're using one of 5 or 6 platforms, and like everyone's trying to come steal market share from them. So I do think it will be fascinating to watch it play out. That said, it is easier said than done to just have AI do it, right? These are events where people are bringing their children to a time and place. The accuracy rate needs to be 99.9% there. It's not just like using it for text and you got a word wrong or got a thought wrong. Like, that email is wrong, or the scheduling is wrong, or something doesn't work. You have 14 angry parents showing up to the wrong spot or getting the wrong communication. And so like, I think the bringing people up to speed on how to use the AI piece of it and in their workflow will also be a challenge for all of the players, right? Mm-hmm. It may be time consuming, but the guy who goes in and manually, or guy or girl who goes in and manually puts the baseball or softball schedule in Team Snaps knows, they eyeball it. If they made a mistake, they made a mistake, right? But they're high degree of confidence that they're going to double check it and get it right. So there is balance. AI isn't always better, but I do think this will be a fun one to see play out. There's well-capitalized companies, and there's plenty of participation to go around. It's not a zero-sum game. So
I'm a big AI wars guy. I love following like Sama, Google, Zuck, Elon, all that. Sama versus Elon is going to. I can't wait to watch it play out. Boring. Luke versus John versus Pete. Like that's what I can't wait to watch out over the next couple of years, how this all plays out. I mean, you've got, Luke in Autosport, you got those guys doing what they're doing. You've got Jon Stewart down in North Carolina just hiring mathematicians, data scientists, sticking them in a lab and saying, you know what, you better build the best AI I have. I mean, they just hired a CFO over at Fastbreak that's been doing deals longer than you and I have been alive, at least me. He's been doing merchant acquisitions for as long as I've been alive. And then you have, Reed and Pete at TeamSnap releasing, a great AI architecture platform in TeamSnap 1. I just think if you are in this space and you listen to this podcast, thank God for us. We're going to have so much content over the next couple of years between, new products coming out, people shifting, who's going where, who's coming here, who's going there. I can't wait. I'm really excited.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. There's so much to go around, right? You have money going into space, and tech is the one thing that scales more easily. Nothing is easy in youth sports, as you'll learn, and I've seen now over the last year and anyone in the industry will tell you, there's still some level of ground game involved in every level. Look at what the guys from League Apps do, right? They are really deeply integrated into a lot of the more professional, larger clubs and organizations, right? They want to really operate and their whole stack and understand their business. And they are shaking hands and kissing babies with their customers multiple times throughout the year, right? They're having an event at the soccer event in Philly. They have their own event. They'll have a presence at our event, right? They're out there talking to their customers, and that's important. Not you start a social media app, it goes viral, it catches on. You could scale that thing infinitely. Youth sports is different. So it is hard. It's harder to come in and just disrupt everything because there is a sales cycle. You have to go out to these individual operators. That said, as things get consolidated, right, it becomes easier to reach more people with a single deal, right? You go to a company that runs X number of clubs, and now it's one point of sale versus having to go to 15 different individual clubs. So, I think there's good and bad with that. It's easier to get scale, but at the same time, if you miss or lose out on a deal, now you've lost a larger chunk of business because it's not as fragmented as it was, and it will be more consolidated in the future. So fun stuff, though. Fun stuff. I am looking forward to youth sports AI wars. The tech platform wars. The tech platform wars.
Yeah, not even streaming wars. We were talking about streaming wars 2 weeks ago. Now it's just tech platform wars. I like that.
Love it.
It's like
well, listen, at the event, I think we're gonna have all these people at the event in some capacity. Some of them on the stage with each other, and you'll be live streaming. So I do look forward to you getting all of these folks on our live stream stage, and which can be sponsored, by the way. We are looking for a sponsor for the live stream stage, and talking to all these folks about the youth sports tech platform wars. And I suspect there will be very strong opinions from the constituents on why they are the best.
I like that.
Which is good.
I like that.
Good. Competition breeds excellence. Love it.
100%. So we're going to get over to our interview with Jess Brodsky, CCO at PlayerData. We're going to be talking about the first ever created GPS-enabled connected football and their partnership with MITRE. You got any thoughts on it before we get over to Jess? Seems like a pretty cool product.
Yeah, no, I look forward to hearing the interview, but high-level thoughts is so much going on in player tracking. I think synthesizing data between players and now including the actual ball, right? The instrument with which people are playing will add that element. I look at someone like what Go Route is doing in baseball and football, where they're wearable devices and they're thinking about data. It's a coach to player communication device in baseball, but they're also saying, hey, we now know the input and what the output was intended to be, or what the outcome was intended to be, right? So if we know that the coach called for a fastball, right? So we know what it was supposed to be and then what happened afterward. So they're able to marry sort of the intended portion and the consequence. And they're sitting on this treasure, will sit on this treasure trove of data in baseball. And there's all sorts of interesting ways to use that. And I think when you look at what PlayerData is doing, beyond just the wearable, what's on the player, you can now put, hey, here's what the player did, here's what their body did, here's where they moved. But now you can incorporate, here's how the ball reacted to that. And I imagine the end state of this is understanding the spin of the ball, right? If someone was moving at this speed, how much spin can they put on a ball, and how fast does the ball travel? Like, lots of cool data and training points that can be married between the players and the balls. But yeah, I'm interested to hear more. I know it's hasn't launched yet.
All right, let's get it over to Jess. Jess Brodsky, CCO at PlayerData. Welcome to Buying Sandlot.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me today.
I appreciate you coming on. First, congratulations, creating the world's first GPS-enabled connected football. Can you give a little rundown on the collaboration between you guys and MITRE?
Yeah, and I'll make sure football, because we're here in the United States. It's really soccer, but my UK colleagues will always correct me and use the word football. But we do have a lot of American football teams that are near and dear to our heart at PlayerData. So we've switched our terminology. We're soccer. So as of last week, we launched the first ever connected smart ball that's purpose built for anybody to roll out in their environment. Worked super closely with MITRE and a few other ball manufacturers through this process to basically try to build something that fits right into a coach's normal path. A lot of people build tech for coaches, but they've got to do something extra, right? Maybe you got to set up a special system or set up a special camera or something to make things work. This, you puts in a normal ball. It looks like a ball. It feels like a ball. It is a ball. It passes all the ball standards. Just take it out of your backpack and you play. And you get access to all kinds of data on the back of it.
Can it be used in a regular game? Or is this just a training model?
Yeah, so definitely can be used in a regular game. So FIFA does all these tests, and it's passed all of FIFA's standards. It's a ball. It's a sort of, MITRE, credit to MITRE and all of our ball providers. They go through so much to make a ball and make sure it's round and make sure it can be played in a game. So it's passed all those tests. The way to think about our ball is we're purpose building it for coaches and players to just get better in their environments, whether that's in training or they want to roll it out in a game. What we're not doing in 2026 is things like broadcast or sports betting. So as long as you're using it to get better, you can use it. And then we'll kind of explore those other use cases after 2026 and into 2027.
Yeah. What does the GPS look like? How small is it? Does it add weight to the ball? Can we just talk about that, nerd out a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll say credit to Roy, who's our CEO and the tech genius behind all of these things. I think he did enough miles. He uses an app called Flighty, which a quick shout out to Flighty. He did enough miles last year making this ball to go straight to the moon. I think he did 3 round the world trips, kind of going back and forth to Asia, visiting ball manufacturers, spending all of our time trying to figure out how to build something scalable. So to build something affordable, we serve a ton of high schools, a ton of clubs. To build something affordable, it has to fit within the normal process. Otherwise, you can't manufacture millions of them for an affordable price and easily. So the sensor's really small. It doesn't alter the weight of the ball at all. And it also doesn't alter the way a ball is manufactured. In the same way that we built the ball for our clients to just roll out of their backpack and play and fit in what we call kind of their normal day-to-day schedule, we did the exact same thing on the manufacturing side. So it's super small, uses a bunch of sensors fused together, what we call an IMU, inertial measurement unit. So it can detect different accelerations, movement in the Z plane. It has a full GPS suite on it, and a few other sensors built together. So we know exactly where it is, exactly the rotation, and how hard it's being kicked. We know everything about that ball, all for what we think is an affordable price and very scalable way to do it with manufacturers.
Yeah, in the press release we were reading, it says putting the GPS on the ball is going to significantly decrease the cost since you don't need any additional tech. Do you have a number on what the ball will cost or a subscription rate for it?
Yeah, so the way that we're going to kind of do the pricing for year one, we're saying it's kind of only available to our PlayerData customers. So you have to use our core product, which is our GPS product or our wearable product, as normal people would call it, that aren't teching out and nerding out between you and I.
Yeah.
So the way that we're going to do it is we're going to just charge a little bit on top of our normal wearable costs. So our wearable retails in the US here at about $195 a year. Those can be shared. So a lot of times kids or teams end up paying about half that per player. And we'll just kind of add $60 on top of that. And you can get access to ball data as well. What's important to think about with how this ball is, like, the ball is just another tool in the toolkit for coaches. And while you and I are talking about it as there's a wearable and there's ball, it's really about one experience at the end where a coach or a parent or a player or a club director or anybody can walk off the field and instantly get access to everything about their game. How many passes did they hit that were successful? How hard was that shot? Where were their shots coming from? Was the strategy that they were trying to do correct? Did the team actually implement it? What players got the most touches? What players got the least touches? Who was hiding? Like, our goal is to answer real questions for coaches, and the ball and the wearable are just tools that can do that for them.
Apologies if I missed this. Is the ball price kind of baked into the subscription, or is it like that $60 on top of it? Would that say like the ball price, or maybe there's not a ball price? I just
Yeah, sorry. So you would just buy a ball. How it would work for a customer is you just kind of go on the normal website that you buy balls, whether that's through a soccer.com here in the US or directly through MITRE or Puma, one of our two first partners. And you, instead of clicking, I want a regular ball, you'd click, I want a smart ball, and you'd order it. So you'd pay for the ball just as you normally would. And then you'd kind of work with us and we'd get the kind of subscription going so you can actually get access to the data.
Got it. Again, going back to the press release, it said, while physical GPS data is now widely used to track athlete load and movement, technical and tactical data remains largely undermeasured. What kind of technical and tactical data will the ball be tracking?
Yeah, this is probably what makes Roy and I so excited to launch this product. When we launched GPS, like, our core business is all about democratizing access to technology. Like, that's what him and I wake up every morning figuring out. How do we get the dreamer, like that kid or that amateur semi-professional player who has a dream of playing elite but doesn't have access to the same technologies? How do we give them every tool in their toolbox to accomplish their dreams and kind of where they want to go? So as we start to think about what types of data it provides, it can really see everything that, the Premier League players, the MLS players see the second they walk off the field. Passes into the final third. I'm saying kind of technical soccer jargon here. Successful passes, shot placement. And then it can use all those data to answer a series of questions on the back of whatever you want to do. But essentially, we know exactly where the players are and exactly where the ball is, what it's doing in rotation, who's that kid that actually hits the banger of the corner kick, or that player that's constantly ripping shots from the outside and actually shooting more on goal than others. It's just an unbelievable amount of data and insights that it can provide.
Yeah. And what's the importance of obtaining good data for youth sports as the whole industry grows?
Yeah. This is a really important question for a lot of reasons, but I like to answer it in three ways.
Yeah.
Most important thing about giving data to kids, I think, is it gives them all the power. Like, objective data gives you power. You're not relying on, if that kid doesn't have the best relationship with their coach or something, like, you're never, there shouldn't be any politics holding you back if you have data about your game. And it should give you access to things that you don't normally get access to. I'm super passionate about that. That's also true for coaches and coach development. I think coach development and coaches are really important to the game and youth sports. And often we kind of overlook that they have 1,000 different jobs and they're also trying to get these kids recruited and, do what's best by them. And so to give them more tools that fit right into the game, I think that's really helpful. But as you think about it, there's like all the player development stuff we can do. There's also a pretty big recruiting use case here, especially with the advent of NIL getting bigger and bigger. A lot of colleges are coming to us already with our wearable product and saying, hey, here's my top 10 prospects. Do you have data on them? And can you see if they can share? Or asking our kids, hey, can you share your data? And our kids have data to be able to share to make sure that they can show that they can withstand physically a game. Because the college game, the college game is really tough. You're playing 2 games a week. Some cases, you often are playing 11 like maybe 15 players, like you have to be able to withstand. And so now what we're able to show in recruiting is not just their physical standpoint, but also how they play tactically. What is their pass rate? Does it mix with kind of your own strategy that you have? We can do all of that without necessarily you even going to a tournament and seeing a player. You can almost like narrow down your prospects before. We can also give players in remote areas a lot more opportunity to be seen by just sharing their data.
Yeah. You're also just not taking a tactical approach with this ball. It's also measuring the health and safety of athletes. How will this ball help reduce injury in some way?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is when you think about wearables, one of the main use cases at the very tippy top in the Premier League, or the MLS, where the NWSL, they're investing in these players pretty large amounts of money, is they use wearables to really track their load and make sure they're not overloading. The game is almost changed a little bit. It's not like sprint 1,000 times when you're in trouble anymore. Like that the modern game has changed. They're trying to make sure that players don't get hurt, make sure players don't get overworked. What's interesting is there's never been a way to consistently track the load on the leg from the ball, which running is one thing. Sure, you're running miles and miles per game, but you're kicking this ball. And we were at the soccer coaches convention. We had over 500 people kick the ball, and some of them were kicking 93 miles per hour. And those are not pro players. Like, these are people whopping this thing, right? And so that data, and even think about headers, right? The impact of the ball on your head, like all of this data is just a black box that doesn't exist, that's not tracked. And so we'll be able, for the first time, we're working with a couple of different bodies to study what that is and be able to give people like a really, for the first ever, the combined load metric, not just of what happens when you're running and stopping and accelerating, and also what you're doing when you kick the ball. And we expect that to protect a lot of players going forward, a lot of ACLs in the women's games and things like that.
So to put it in layman's terms for someone who might not be in the data industry, me, like if someone's coming back from a hamstring injury and maybe they're not kicking the ball as hard as they were, before the hamstring injury, it was like, all right, Johnny might need a week or two to recover from that kind of, or maybe they're, like you said, it's a grind in college soccer. Maybe halfway through the season, they see that Billy's not, kicking the ball as hard as he used to. Maybe they got to put him on the shelf or something like that for a game.
Yeah. A good example of this, and this is more on the wearable side, we had a team recently that in their warm up for their games, they were doing about 50% of their high intensity running and sprints that they would do in an entire game. So essentially, their starters were playing a game and a half and dying out in the fourth quarter. That's just on the wearables and the physical side. Imagine if you layered onto that all of the touches, all of the load that's putting on their leg with whatever you're doing and sprinting that much in warm up. And these are things that they pay super close attention to at the elite levels, and they protect athletes. But even in the college game, high school game, and as you go down and down, like, coaches don't have the time or the tools to be able to track that. They want to, but they don't have the time and tools. And our job is to provide them the tools with as limited time as possible.
Yeah. What's the rollout look like in terms of the United States versus maybe UK and Europe?
Yeah, so we're really excited. We launched with MITRE this week. We're also Puma's coming online here too. We have 2 or 3 of the other major ball manufacturers launching hopefully in the next few months. So that's amazing. It's not, anywhere we have customers is anywhere that will take ball orders. For 2026, we're kind of calling it our live beta year and learning a bit about kind of the things you're asking me. How do people use it? What are like the really, really important metrics kind of across? But it's available exclusively for our customers for now, and people that want to be our customers in GPS. And then in 2027, we'll start to think about, how to have a big year. But yeah, we've had quite a bit of pre-sign-ups in the first 3 days, which has been awesome. And we're really excited to see how it changes the game.
Yeah. Amazing. And no, it's a really interesting product. And I know when it came across my email, I was like really excited to interview and talk to you more about it. But what's the future of player data and maybe different ball technology look like, for training? I mean, I can't see why this wouldn't work in a basketball or a football Americano. I just want to make sure everybody at PlayerData in the UK is happy with my pronunciation. Or volleyballs, tennis balls, like ball, everything balls.
Everything ball. So PlayerData, we serve 14 sports. Big sports are soccer, American football, basketball. We have other sports, but they don't have air in their ball, so can't help them. Lacrosse, that would be one that's a sport I played. We're hopefully we have a few volleyball teams coming online too, so we're coming to our other sports for sure. Looking at that in 2027. And then I think the other thing we'll be looking at in terms of the ball is how to unlock some of these other use cases for the mass market, right? Like how do we help maybe bring broadcast lower into the market, or look at different opportunities for gamification or fan engagement, things outside of the development pathway. I'll look at that as well. In terms of the future of PlayerData, we have another trick up our sleeve coming in a couple of months, and that'll be kind of the last big product we launch. But it's really, really about, for me and for Roy and for our entire team, like I said it in the beginning, and it's a good place to kind of say now, it's about the dreamers for us. Like, how do we, if there's an experience that's available to elite players that we think can be helpful down the pyramid, or that someone down the pyramid wants, we're here to use the advancements in technology to bring that to the masses without ever sacrificing on data quality. And that's what wakes us up in the morning. Our engineers are all very excited. They test all the most latest things coming out of the market to try to bring that to the masses in every single sport, because we believe everybody deserves equal opportunity, and data is the future. It's coming. AI is here. It's getting here more and more. And you need data to power that. And we think everybody should be a part of that revolution. That's
amazing. No, and we'll definitely look out for that product that you guys have in launching later in 2026. I'm sure it'll be really exciting.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, Kyle. And we'll have to catch up over some Philly sports at some point again.
Yeah. Eyes on the draft right now. Eyes on the draft.
Eyes on the draft. Stay focused. Yep.
Bad year, Super Bowl season. 31 other teams would love to be in our shoes.
Yeah. Only in Philadelphia are we just like, we can't let anybody win with that type of a performance.
Yeah, 100%.